Now I know we didn't have any improvements in the last video, but these are today's improvements. For one, right here, we have a motorized slider. This is gonna make the time-lapse shots really, really cool because instead of the camera just staying in one spot, it's going to be slowly moving. And for a time-lapse, you'll see it'll look sweet. And then we just have some studio lights. I got a new lens and a bunch of other stuff for the camera. Just a lot of little things to help improve the video quality of the videos. Now you're not actually gonna see any of this stuff used until about halfway, 3/4 of the way through the video, because I'm recording this right now here from the future. So welcome back to the mid-engine Eclipse build. Today is an exciting day because we are going to get the chassis 100% done. Ready to put all the parts back in to get it driving, pretty much. Now what that entails is adding some more supports for the strut towers and some other supports for the cage and chassis. And then the main thing is going to be making a firewall that separates the engine from the passenger compartment. There's not much else to say and there's a lot of work to do. So without any further ado, let's get started. So I got this removable X brace added, just tacked together, but it will do a good job at kind of supporting the strut towers. I showed Mr. Mateo this, and he thinks it's awesome, but he suggested adding 2 more support bars on each top hat mount. I think I have just enough metal left to do that. Over 100 feet of DOM has gone into this car. It's crazy, but let's get to work on those 4 more bars. And then it's time for Firewall. That's an exciting part. If this piece was 1.5 inches longer, I could make 2 bars out of it. But unfortunately, I'm only gonna be able to make 1 bar out of it, and then I'm gonna have 15 inches of scrap. I think this looks really sick because there's 3 bars that slowly angle up and out. Almost kind of looks like a little spider web. It's really quite sick. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and weld up the removable X brace and these bars that we added, and we can move on to the firewall. Well, now that the cage is 100% done, 100% welded, built, everything, it's time to move on to the firewall. Now, I was debating whether I wanted to do a full solid firewall, a full solid double pane firewall, or a firewall of 1 window, of 2 windows, 3 windows. So I went on to Patreon, I did a little Photoshop with windows, without windows, and asked my patrons to see what they thought would be better. And it was pretty much a unanimous pro window. And even now, my phone is still blowing up with window. Yeah, window it is. If you guys want to support the channel and be part of extra things here and there, check out Patreon up there. But now, since there is an X in the cage, we can't just do one big window, right? Because the firewall I'm building it in the center of the tube so that you can kind of see the, the actual cage in the firewall, which I thought would be cool. But because of that, I'm gonna have to do 3 separate windows. One window in this top triangle, and then one window in the top level with the 2 factory windows in each of the sides. The Langmuir system plasma cutter is gonna be just absolutely clutch for this job. I'm gonna take pictures of the cage with my phone, then transfer it onto Fusion 360, and hopefully all I'll have to do is trace out the shape of the cage, put some metal on the CNC, and chop chop. Nice. Starting to come to the realization that the photo tracing method, it don't work too well on these bigger pieces. It don't fit. The problem is that when you take a photo, it's from one location, and there's a thing called lens warp, so even though it looks like everything will fit, the photo is slightly warped and distances they're not accurate. For a small item that goes like right in front of the camera, not a big deal. But for a big item, it makes a bigger difference. Now I could use an app like Polycam to make an actual 3D model of the cage with my phone, and that would be way better than a photo because it wouldn't be warped. It's like a full 3D model. But I think with the simple geometry and stuff of the cage, I think it's good old tape measure and angle finder time. Well, I messed up another piece because I accidentally set the machine to cut the outside of the bolt holes instead of the inside, so they were way too big and just totally useful. Today's been a very expensive learning experience, but we finally have a piece that's the right size holes, and it fits. Well, as you can see, the engine side of the firewall is all tacked together. Before we go ahead and make the same thing on the passenger compartment side, we have to get this one all finished up. For one, it's rattly, and that's just because it's tacked together. So I'm gonna weld it a lot more on the inside and the outside. Then we're gonna seam sealer it on the inside and the outside. Then we're gonna put sound deadening on the inside so it won't be visible. Oh, I forgot we're gonna paint it on the inside so it doesn't rust. And then after all that, we can do the other side. So the engine side of the firewall is tacked together, but besides the tacks, it's also got seam sealer on the back now, and it's like it was from the factory. We are gonna put seam sealer on this side of the wall, but I ran out. So what we're gonna do, we are gonna go ahead and paint this side, the inside, because this won't be visible. So we're gonna go and paint it now, some steel it. And then I've got sound deadening to put on the inside as well. Well, all the sound deadening is in. Turned out freaking great. This one wall is like more solid than like the floor. But now that this is all done, we can seal it up by putting the other layer of the firewall on. As you saw, I cut out all the sheets on the plasma cutter, scuffed them up, painted them with some more steel it. Now I gotta trim them, make them fit, and then we can tack them in. And that's the awesome thing about steel it, is that it's weldable. So even though I just painted the entire cage, I can still weld to it. Well, as you can see, the inside layer of the firewall is done. It's all welded up. The next thing is to go ahead and seam sealer it. But before I get to seam sealing, I'm gonna explain why there is a Jeep in my shop. You guys saw this earlier. Hunter, you wanna... What are you doing here, man?
So...
Whoa, wait, what's that? is that out of this?
So you guys saw... So I have a Focus ST and a 4Runner, right? Focus ST broke the trans. The 4Runner broke the trans. I didn't want to fix the 4Runner.
Well, you fixed the Forerunner.
Okay, so I fixed it. I thought the throwout bearing was bad. Pulled the trans, put a new throwout bearing in it. Turns out the input shaft bearing was bad, and the whole trans had to be rebuilt. Didn't want to do that, so I sold the Forerunner. So sorry, you Toyota guys. I wanted a Jeep. I want to live my little doorless hippie boy dreams for the summer. So I found this super clean, never off-roaded, like RV pulled 100,000 mile Wrangler for a great deal. But I knew when I bought it, the throwout bearing was making kind of weird noises. But I was like, you know what? I probably have at least a couple of months, right? I had 3 days.
Do you still have the old one?
Yeah, so, all right, for reference, this is what the throwout bearing in a Jeep Wrangler is supposed to look like. This is what came out of mine.
So yeah, that's what the rad Jeep is doing.
Yellow Jeep.
The yellow, I said rad.
Rad Jeep.
Rad yellow Jeep. No, the yellow looks sick in the shop. I like all the colorful vehicles. Well, there we are. We got that side all seam sealed up. We have this side all seam sealed up. It's very very sturdy. Obviously, we won't be able to tell if it rattles or lets sound or heat through until there's an engine in here and this thing's driving. But I am really happy that I did the 2-layer firewall like I'd planned. I'm happy I used the sound deadening. I've got a bunch of the sound deadening left over, so we'll put it throughout the rest of the car. This car is not supposed to be like a race car. It's supposed to be a streetable car, so that will help with that. There's one last thing I need to do before this thing is a 100% finished mid-engine chassis. Gotta finish welding up the X-brace. And with that, ladies and gents, the X-brace is done, and therefore the chassis is 100% done on our mid-engine Eclipse. I cut out a little logo thing for the X-brace because I thought it looked pretty cool. I'm not like 100% happy with it, but I think it's gonna look awesome once it's painted, and then I'm gonna do the inlaid letters red. So that's pretty much it for today. The chassis is done, like I've said a couple times, and so we're ready to build the new motor and start putting all the parts back in. Now, you might be thinking, what about paint and stuff? I'm gonna get it running and driving, get it probably tuned, aligned, and all that. Once we make sure everything's working and everything that needs to be there is there, then I'll disassemble it all, paint it, make it look nice. Point is, we're done. That's it for this video. Next video, we're putting the motor in, or we're putting the motor together and then putting it in. And if you want to watch that early, you can click up there, head over to Patreon, support the channel. And if you want to get entered for your chance to win the mid-engine Eclipse, I'll have a link down to powerjdm.com. Every $1 you spend on merchandise or on car parts gets you 1 entry for your chance to win this thing. Hunter's still working on the Jeep, as you can tell. Trans isn't even back in. New clutch isn't even on. But hey, you got the oil fin.
It's gotta remain.
It's gotta remain. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.